All right. Well, thank you everybody for being here. Highrise is proud to have a good friend, Bill Saleebey. A little bit of history. I think we met around 30 years ago in a networking group that I formed. That I guess it was a pre-Highrise group. And Bill is a mover by training. And I thought to myself back in my younger days that wouldn't it be great if I could get a mover, an architect, a banker, a telecom person, an architect, a contractor, get them all in the room so when somebody decides to relocate their office, we could handle it all at one point. So Bill and I met in that networking group back in the day, and many years later, suddenly he starts writing books on networking and becoming somewhat of an icon in the networking world. I mean, what do they call you, Bill? The oldest networker in the world? No, no, go ahead. Don't you have a nickname or something?
Well, my nickname is Dr. Bill because I have a PhD. That's one nickname. I have a bunch of others, but for now, we'll just keep it at that one.
Great. And how many books have you written, Bill?
I've written a total of 4 books. The first book I wrote back in 1981 called Study Skills for Success. I had developed a study skills seminar and decided, well, basically someone said, is there a book you recommend? And there wasn't, so I figured I'd write one. So I wrote Study Skills for Success. And then around 1995, I wrote a book called Sell Yourself, which is a book about sales. And then after I got into networking, the first book I wrote is Connecting Beyond the Name Tag. And then recently, about 4 years ago, I wrote Connecting Key Networking Tips for business and life.
Nice.
So those are my 4 books.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Bill, for being here. I'm going to hand it off to you. And Bill's focus today is to really talk about how do we, in this environment, i.e. high rise, you could say the P word, other networking organizations that, maybe not as top professionals as we have here, but it still applies across the board. If we want to develop relationships and drive new business and have great resources for our clients to use. The key is how do we develop those relationships and how do we make sure we're doing the right things when we're interacting with the people within our circle of influence. So Bill, I'm going to hand it off to you and continue to let people in, and it's all yours.
Okay, thank you, Forrest. First of all, again, I appreciate you giving me this opportunity to share my ideas. And networking really has been around forever. And some of the principles stay the same regardless of what technology does. Obviously, 30 years ago, this kind of call wouldn't have been possible because we just didn't have the technology for it. And even within the last 20 years, the technology continues to evolve. But technology is not really how you build relationships. You ultimately build relationships face to face and person to person. How do you do it? There's a lot of kind of key techniques and key principles. One of them is kind of as a starter is be a good listener, be curious about people, and have a genuine concern about them. And I think the key, well, first of all, let's start with a definition. My definition of networking is developing mutually beneficial relationships over time. There's a lot in that definition. Mutually beneficial relationships, so that everybody involved in the networking experience is benefiting. And you do that by being a giver and figuring out ways that you can be valuable to other people. How can you help them? That's obviously a great networking question, is how can I help you? So the relationships are the key, and every relationship is a little bit different. The basic networking paradigm is know, like, trust, refer. I don't know who really came up with that at first. It makes a lot of sense. There's more to it than that. And one of the main things that is there is the connection. You make a connection with someone. And there are a lot of ways to do that, but mainly you find something you have in common with them. as you listen to people, they will say things that will be triggers for you. For example, I know that you're a golfer, and I know, and I'm a golfer also. So if you and I are talking and we had never met and golf comes up, and it doesn't have anything to do with business directly, it's something we may have in common. And um, you can test those things out. If I find out you play golf and I bring up a topic about golf, and it seems to be something that you're interested in, that we found that we have a mutual interest. Could be golf, it could be travel, it could be children, it could be grandchildren, could be a variety of things. But you make a connection with it, with the other person,
Yeah,
and the
Bill,
other.
given technology as it is today, now do you come back and enter that into your Salesforce that, Forrest likes to play golf, so that way the next time you follow up, how do you keep track of that type of
That
information?
is a good way to do it. I personally don't do that, but that's a good way. If you want to keep track and if you want to remember, then make notes so that the memory is there.
Hmm.
In some cases, it's just a natural thing. For example, you talk to someone and their conversation is about the fact that their son is going to be going to college. You pay attention to that, you show an interest in that. The next time you talk to that person, you may ask them, did your son decide to go to Wisconsin or UCLA?
Yeah,
And they'll tell you, well, they decided not to do either one of those. And then the next time you talk to them, you build on that conversation.
yeah.
So making notes, whether it be uh, in Salesforce, in LinkedIn, whatever it is that you are communicating with them about, so that the memory is there and you can build on the relationships every time you see that person.
Thanks.
And the other thing that comes up is we're coming into the season of a lot of social events. And one of the things that people kind of don't know how to do, and particularly people who are new to networking, is what do I do when I go to a big social event and there's all these people? How do I navigate that? Do I go around and see if I can collect as many business cards as possible? That's the old school way of doing it. Or do you try and have fewer conversations and go deeper in those conversations? Or do you talk to people mainly, do you deepen the relationships and talk to people you already know? Or do you go to an event and say, look, I already know Forrest and Susie and Bob, I'm going to go talk to the people I don't know? um, and both work. But you have to, in any event, in whatever you do, stay engaged in the conversation that you're in. Uh, don't just be flitting around from person to person. I know some people that think, well, I should only really talk to someone for a couple of minutes and then I've got to mingle. Now, a good example would be the fact that you as a commercial real estate broker and me as a mover, there is a natural connection. In fact, probably my greatest referral sources are brokers. So that if I met you for the first time at a social event and I'd never met you before, and I found out you were a broker and you started talking about all the deals you were doing, that would be a conversation I'd want to stay in, rather than saying after 30 seconds, sorry, Forrest, I've got to mingle. You'd go, well, gee, I'm a great potential source for this guy. Why is he in a hurry to go talk to someone else? So these are some of the kind of the basic starting principles of networking.
Yeah. Bill, I want to make a comment too. I don't know if I learned this from you or somebody else, but in these social events, there is a good chance if you reach out to the host that they will provide you a list of the attendees. And if you're able to find out who the attendees are in advance, you can somewhat kind of go through and look at the people that you'd like to meet. Or if it's something you've been to often, you kind of already know the person that you want to meet. And instead of being a guest at this event, become a host. So what I'll do is I'll stand pretty close to the front of the room, almost looks like you're greeting people as they come in. And even if you don't know the person visually, you can read name tags. And as soon as that person walks in, you either immediately introduce yourself or in one biotech giant who I was chasing down one time in the old days. He says, you know, I don't understand. He goes, every time I come to the biotech council, you're sitting next to me. What a coincidence. And I thought, no. And I know it's creepy a little bit, but you know, he'd walk in, he would go to the same table every time. He'd put his little, you know, his briefcase or his little folder on top, and I would go next to that seat, and I'd put the napkin over and reserve that spot for myself. So if you do a little homework in advance, it can really go a long ways when you're actually in that event, when you only have 20 or 30 minutes to interact and make decisions and meet the people that you really want to meet.
And today, Forrest, we have an increased opportunity to do that because primarily LinkedIn. In other words, let's say you're going to be having a meeting with someone. Today, you just go to their LinkedIn profile. You can find out all kinds of things about them. And like you said, it could be considered a little creepy. In other words, people go, how do you know all this stuff about me? Well, everybody who knows about LinkedIn knows that we are able to do that. And we can either say, where did you go to school? Or you could say, how did you like Stanford? Or how did you like Harvard, or whatever, wherever it was they went to school, or wherever it was they worked. So people, when they have a meeting, can more and more expect that we know more about, and we're not asking some of those basic questions because we've already, as you mentioned, done our homework, whether it be an event where we say, I'm looking for this specific person because I really want to meet them. But you take you don't take a hard sell approach. You're gentle about it, but still it's clear to them that you're kind of waiting for them. You want to meet them, and you want to build that relationship, and you want to learn as much about them as possible,
Yeah.
so that you can build a strong and mutually beneficial relationship.
Well, I've been curious about this, Bill. When do you feel is the right time? When do you think you're allowed to ask somebody for business? What is there a particular point? Is there any recommendations to us? Because that I feel a little funny about that sometimes. I meet somebody, I know they're perfect. You know, I go to lunch with them, and then I want to be respectful, but I still want to be aggressive. So I don't know what the right. If you have a feeling on what the right.
There's not one right answer for that. I think what I've seen, I've been in sales for almost 40 years now, for the straight through. And I remember when I first started in sales, that's what I was taught is you've got to ask for the business.
Mm-hmm.
And you got to be very direct for that. And I wasn't particularly comfortable with that. So I took kind of a softer approach to it and built a relationship so that they were basically saying, I want to use your service. So part of it depends on how hard it is going to be to make that sale. If it's going to be a very difficult sale and you have to be aggressive, then hopefully use your emotional intelligence and say, this is a good time. This is the perfect time. I've met with this person a few times. You can kind of tell they're waiting for me to ask them for the business. You better do it, because they're going, geez, I wanted to give Forrest the business, but he never asked me for it. And so I used another broker because he was too timid. Well, I know you pretty well, Forrest. Timid is not a word I would use to describe you, nor is it a word I would use to describe myself. But what has happened over these many years is people have become what I refer to as sales resistant. So they've heard all of the traditional sales lines, like what do I have to do to get the business, or have I answered all your questions, or can I have the order? You have to see, and in some cases you kind of know that they're going to give you the business. Don't be too pushy about it, but still, in one way that sales hasn't changed is you've got to ask for the business. You've got to ask for the order. The question is, when do you do that? The stronger the relationship is, the easier it is to know, and the easier it is. The relationship is so strong that it's a very natural thing. I'd like to work with you. Can I have this job?
Yeah. No, you can't. I don't know you long enough. I need another 10 more years. All right, Bill, go ahead. I didn't mean to derail you there. Go ahead.
No, no, no. That's okay. I was kind of that's kind of what I wanted to say. It's building the relationship. The stronger the relationship is, and when you're in a group like Highrise, where the purpose of the group is that business is shared, that everybody knows that that's why other people are there. So if the relationship is built properly, then it's a natural. They're going to go, I know you, I know what you do, I like you, I trust you because everybody says you do a good job. I'm gonna give you the business, or I'm going to refer you to someone else, the person that you want to be referred to. That's it for now. So what else? What else do you want to know, Forrest?
Oh, me?
Yeah, what do you want to know that you don't
I'm
know
the
already?
interviewer now. Oh
What's
boy,
that?
I'm gonna get to do an interview. Oh, that's awesome. How do you hit the ball straight down the middle like Tiger Woods every single tournament? No.
You
Um,
don't.
okay.
You don't. Nobody
So
does.
let me think here. So networking. So can we talk just briefly? I know it's relatively elemental, but I see folks in high rise a lot of times doing self introductions that are just flawed. Uh, hi, I'm John Jones. I do accounting. I do cost seg. I do audit. I do tax. I do media consulting. I do, and you're confused. Is there a good way to get the point across with better than another? Do you have any flavor on that?
Well, there's all kinds of variations on the theme. Some people, they like their introduction to be funny or tricky or something like that. What I think the key is, it should be brief. Don't go on and on. So how do you do an elevator speech, or how do you do an introduction? It should be brief. It should be clear. People should know from that introduction exactly what you do. It should be memorable. So anything there, and you can try different, someone can try different ones. And after you do those, someone will say, now I really get what you do. I get exactly what you do. Your introduction was very, very clear. And that's the purpose. That's not going to really get you the introduction is not going to get you the business, but it's going to get you, could, but it's unlikely that alone is going to get you the business. It's going to get people to know what you do. And as you talk to people after your introduction, they'll be able to tell you, um, now I get what you do. And when you meet with them and you get to know them better, they're clear exactly what you do. What you do is very clear. You're in addition to running this fine organization, you're a commercial broker. You find space for people. You help them negotiate or renegotiate their leases. So once someone knows what you do, then you have to figure out who are the people that might need your services, or who are the people that can refer you to other people. Now, how you introduce yourself depends upon whether you are one of many or you're the only one in that organization who does what you do. Now, I happen to be in the groups I'm in, I happen to be the only one who does what I do. So it's a
That's
little
the
easier.
fundamental.
When,
Bill.
when there are other people who do what you do, then you have to differentiate yourself from other people. So, for example, if you're a employment law attorney, you have to differentiate yourself whether you're a defendant or a plaintiff attorney. Whatever form of law, or whatever form of accounting, whatever form of financial business or real estate you're in, you have to be clear so that someone knows when they would use your services, why they would use your services, and so forth.
Right. Thank you. Um, I want to open it up to questions for anybody else. Please write them in on the or unmute and ask. But I'll ask a question while people are thinking about it. Bill, why are we generally so bad at networking? I mean, I, you know, we're just not that good at it. Do you have any flavor on that?
Well, let me clarify your question. When you say why we are so, in what ways are, in your opinion, in what ways are people bad?
Well, I mean, it's so easy to walk into a room and stand in the corner and talk to your old buddy that you just played golf with on Friday, and then not really introduce yourself to anybody else. I feel like we finally get a one-to-one meeting with people, and it feels like they, you know, it's hard to make that connection the way we'd like it to that would further it. And then I think lastly, you look down at the stack of business cards as we used to, or you look at your list of people you met with in the last 2 weeks and you just don't follow up. I, you know, I don't know if you have a flavor as to why.
Okay, so I think people, when I see people that I consider that aren't very good at it, I think there are a few things.
Mhm.
One, they talk too much.
Okay.
So I think one character, they're yippers. They just go on and on and on. They don't listen. So they talk too much and they don't listen. Um, you brought up another one. They don't follow up. They go to meetings, but they don't ever follow up with the people they meet.
Right.
So getting back to my definition, building mutually beneficial relationships over time. It's a process. It's a long-term process. So I think people are bad who think that they can join Highrise and pay the dues to join and never show up. And they say,
Yeah.
gee, Forrest, I'm not getting any business. Well, have you been going to the meetings? Oh, I went to one, but I didn't get any. So it's a naivete about how the process works,
Mhm.
that it's building the relationships, and the more and the stronger you build those relationships, the more chance that you're going to get something out of it. It doesn't happen overnight. Or they think that, well, people know what I do, they should just be giving me business. So another reason people are, as you say, bad at networking is they don't give. They just expect to get something.
Mhm.
And most people join networking groups because they want business. But there are a lot of other reasons, a lot of other benefits from groups, such as some people join them because they want people to refer to. So they are joining a group because they need to have people to refer
Mhm.
to, and they say, I've got enough business, I'm not even looking for business, I'm just looking for people to refer to. So the better that your elevator speech is, the better you are when someone is face to face with you and say, what do you do? And you can give a concise, clear answer. That's when you're going to get more benefit out of it.
Love it. Love it. Well, I mean, I think there's an inherent fear of rejection too. We're sitting in our office and we're thinking about going to our high-rise meeting at lunch, and we think we start futzing around with client work, and we start thinking, well, I really don't want to have to go get, what is my elevator speech going to sound like? I don't want to get rejected. I think or I'm going to go to this big holiday event. I know I paid $100 for it, but maybe that show on TV is more interesting. So I think rejection is part of it. Quite frankly, I don't think they've read your book. So there's a lack
Either
of
one of them or any of the four of them, right?
lack of training. It's just knowledge based. If you don't have the confidence, it's really tough. And I'm just looking at a couple of notes I made here, and then people really don't have a plan of attack, and that kind of rolls to, I mean, that's probably a bad word to use, attack. We're not trying to attack people. Maybe I am, because I'm a stalker. But other than that, so the next question, there's a couple of questions which just kind of rolls into it. So what does your touch program look like? How many follow-ups? And then a second question is, um, well, it's actually the same question. So how quickly do you follow up, and how often do you follow up? And is it a phone call? Is it an email? What's your process?
It depends. It depends on who the person is. If it's, let's say it's someone who is clearly a direct referral source, someone in your field.
Mm,
So I meet a broker that says, yeah, I'm a tenant broker and I do deals all over the valley or Conejo Valley, and I meet them. We my first follow up will be, I'll ask them to join LinkedIn. So I'll join LinkedIn, and then it could be depending upon the nature of the relationship, maybe a month and a half later, if it's a positive relationship, I'll say, yeah, I'm gonna be out there. You want to get coffee, or you want to have lunch. So not too much, not over. I don't try not to overdo it, but you want to make sure that there is some kind of fairly immediate follow up, and then maybe a month, 2 months down the road. Not again, not overdoing it, but you get a sense that they want. Hopefully, you get a sense that they want additional contact after the first contact. But you got to follow up. I remember so clearly reading Keith Ferrazzi's book, Never Eat Alone. And one of his chapters is a great title of the chapter. It says, Follow Up or Fail. And I think some people, and you're going to see it in Highrise, some people join, they meet people, the people really like them. The other person really wants to build a relationship, and they don't follow up. So you've got to build a relationship, and that involves following up and having additional contacts. And the more contacts, theoretically, the better.
Yeah, the biggest challenge we have in Highrise is people following through with their commitments of showing up to meetings, going to events, being on these types of calls. So you're right. In Los Angeles, Orange County, and basically in California, probably across the country, I don't know that because we're here, is just answering the phone causes opportunities. I mean, how many times have you called a referral source and said, hey, I've got a piece of business for you, and they don't call back for 4 or 5 days? So you're right. I think that's a big thing, and that follows through on the follow-up idea. I do LinkedIn immediately. I'm probably a little more aggressive. I toss it on a 2-week program where it comes up on my calendar that says call, this person if it's a good referral source. And then I try to establish what I would call my circle of influence, the people that are most important in my network, because we really don't need 200, 300, 400 people. We need 20, 30, 40 people that we consider our friends that we go to and all the time to do business with. And that's not that hard to follow up with. So the real question when you meet new people is that person a person I want to put into my inside circle or not? And if they are, they're probably top priority, and follow-up's going to be extensive. Any thoughts on circle of influence, Bill?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think you can get real sophisticated and say, and have it all categories, A, category B, or C, and that's fine. That's good to do. That depends on what stage of your career. A lot of the answers to any of these questions are, what stage are you in your career? Are you just starting out to where you're going, I'm new at what I'm doing, and I've got to build a big, not necessarily a big, but a really strong network, and I don't have one, versus I already have this massive network. Like in my case, I'm at the later stages of my career. So I'm doing things differently now. So the advice I would give to people who are at the beginning stages of their career are very different. But you mentioned something that I want to hit on, and that is when you get a referral, what is very, very important is what you do when you get a referral. Immediately, you thank the person who gave you the referral. And if it's an email referral, if you're referring me to someone who is moving their offices and you're doing an email referral to me, the very first thing is, thanks very much, Forrest. I really appreciate it. Pleased to meet you, Susan. I am happy to help you in any way. Contact me at your convenience. So I've immediately responded. If Susan then sends me an email and says, I'd like to set up a meeting with you, that's top priority. I've been, more than anything, sales. I'm a salesperson. And if I want that business, I've got to be on it. And I think the people who don't respond, one, if you give referrals to people and they don't respond, my guess is you're probably not going to give them any more referrals. You're going, I gave you a referral and it didn't follow up on it. You did a crappy job, versus you did a great job. That's what makes me want to keep referring you. The other side to that is be generous with your referrals. If you're anybody who's listening to this, who's in Highrise, find people, find ways that you can provide anything to people. A referral is great. Obviously, an enthusiastic referral is even better than just a referral. I don't consider someone who says, I'm going to give you 10 names of possible people a very strong referral. I consider a referral, you got to use Bill or you got to use Forrest. They're the best in the business. That's the only name I'm going to give you. That's a pretty strong referral. Now, if that person then proves right away that they are exactly what that person said they were, good chance they're going to get the business. I know my business has changed 100% since I first started. And that when I first started, I didn't have any referrals. A referral didn't exist. Now my business is 99% referral business because I've built my network. I've not only built my network deep, but I've built my network very, very wide. And I've stayed networking. Years ago, someone said to me, Bill, you really don't need to do this anymore because everybody knows what you do and they're going to refer you. And I said, no, that's not true. If I stopped doing this, people would forget pretty quickly and they wouldn't have my face in front of them, my personality in front of them. And they go, well, yeah, there was some guy who did moving, but I forget him and I haven't seen him in a while. I'm going to deal with someone else, or I'm just not going to refer anybody. So you got to stay, again, people who are in Highrise, go to as many meetings as you can. Go consistently, build relationships, continue to show up. If you stop showing up, you can't complain that you're not getting any business because you're not doing anything.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah, that's for sure. And I think most of our members are all senior professionals, 20 years plus in the industry. So they're definitely they probably know everybody they need to know, and they're just not leveraging it the way that they want to. So the next question I have is, how do you maximize a one-on-one meeting, a lunch, a coffee? How do you make it as productive as possible? Because obviously in LA, even just driving, it might be an hour to get there, an hour meeting and an hour back. I sometimes look at that and go, well, how am I going to really leverage that and make it a benefit to the person on the other side as well as myself? Any thoughts around that?
Sure. Yeah, I think a lot of the answer is really the art of conversation. And so you've got this lunch meeting, and up for approximately an hour and a half, and it's largely a conversation. So, but it's not just an interview. It's not just you asking 20 questions and them asking 20 questions. It's a dialogue, and I can't really in a period of an hour or whatever tell people how do you have the best conversations, but generally come from a position of curiosity. So it's a two-way conversation. Both of the people let's say it's just two people, both of the people want to get something out of it. So you're finding out about the other person and then you're responding. It's not just I asked you 20 questions and you asked me 20 questions. We have a dialogue and we try and find a common ground. As you progress as the conversation progresses, you find out what might be some really important touch points that can lead to business. So ask good questions. When questions are asked of you, give clear answers. So part of that is the other person finding out what it is you do. So you present information about what you do. So if I'm having a conversation with someone and they say, well, most of my clients really aren't moving, but a lot of them are doing construction and, they might be putting in a new carpet or painting. Do you do that kind of thing, Bill? Then that gives me the opportunity to say, yes, not only do we do that, but that's maybe more of my business is moving people within a building than it is moving them from one place to another. because of the way that, and as you know, Forrest, being a broker, the way that leases have changed. Someone's saying, we're renegotiating our lease, we're not moving, so I guess we wouldn't need you, would we, Bill? Oh yeah, because you got to move everything out, have it painted and carpeted, and then move it back, and we do that kind of thing. So a conversation is, to further answer your question, is really a dialogue. You don't really know where it's going. You have some ideas. You say, this is what I want to find out about the other person. And when they ask me questions, I'm prepared to answer questions so they know what I do. So there's going to be more of a chance for them providing a referral to me. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that's awesome. And you know, I've been to those one-on-ones too, where the person on the other side had one too many coffees that day, and they talk incessantly about their garden. And you know, there's a certain point where, you know, it's okay. I don't want to hear about the garden anymore, and they don't realize that it is a conversation and not just a monologue. And I think if you also come with a philosophy of giving, that can be a big thing. And if you do a little bit of research on people and you show up and you say, you know, John, I know you're a golfer. You know, I understand you're over at the country club. Why don't our next meeting, why don't you come out to my club and let's invite a couple of clients? So you have a little bit of an end game in mind rather than just showing up and having lunch. Because I think a lot of times we just don't have a plan. We run from one meeting to the next. And I think a lot of the senior professionals here probably have more time. We're probably more conscious of that. You know, we're not chasing everything, but it just spending that 20 minutes or 10 minutes before makes that 2 hours much more beneficial than other. The other thing I've been doing is using a calendar link to do the scheduling, because you know, the 20-30 minutes, the aggravation of can you meet here or there or this or that. Literally I use Calendly, and I'll put it in the chat box, .com, and you can literally set out a appointment, a lunch appointment time, maybe a 2-hour window where you have travel time in there as well, and they will go into your calendar. They can't see what, but if they request, it'll be open, and they can schedule. I think it's $8 a month, and it's changed my life in the sense of scheduling appointments. So that's something to consider as well.
The other thing too is it doesn't have to be a lunch or a breakfast where you're sitting down. You can say, let's take a walk. I mean, if the other person seems receptive to it, and there can be a lot of value to that, because some people are not, they're not sedentary, so they can sit still for an hour, but then after that they go, I gotta move around a little bit, and that could be, well, you mentioned golf, good example. Yeah. Whatever activity, oh, you do that, let's do that together. Okay, yeah. And you build the relationships. It's not just about going to networking meetings or follow up to networking meetings, whatever you want to call them, a troika or whatever it is, or a formal meeting. It's, you know, play golf, play tennis, take a walk, all kinds of variations to just the sit down meeting can bring a lot of things out rather than just the traditional.
Yeah, I wrote an article about networking lifestyle. It really should not be something, it shouldn't be work. It should just be part of what you do. You know, I play golf. I like to, we've learned how to make custom craft cocktails. So I'll invite somebody to my place, and we'll have a great old fashioned that I make a little bit different. You know, but it's something I'm interested in. So am I working, or am I just enjoying time with a friend, in a sense, and developing that relationship? So the more often you look around the places you're already going. I had one of our members who he would stop by a bar every night for his cocktail. And he said he got more business out of sitting at that countertop than he has in anything else, because those folks are there too. They're single like him. They're business people. They're in downtown. And all he did was say, look, these are people that are like me. Why not get to know them a little bit? And then what's going to happen from it is amazing. I mean, how many people here have kids that are soccer teams or sports, or whatever it might be, it is wherever you are, those are the people that are most likely to be like you.
Yeah, just the term networking, I haven't used the word net playing. That really it can be a lot of fun, and along the same lines, it's that someone you knew back then. What I've gotten a lot of benefit from is you reach back. You say, I haven't heard from this person in years. I'm just going to send them an email, or I'm going to look them up and see if they're on LinkedIn or see if they're on Facebook. And I've gotten business, from that. They go, oh, gee, Bill, long time. I haven't heard from you in a long time. Are you still in the moving business? Yeah. Oh, so great. You connected. My wife's company is moving. They weren't going to really, they wouldn't have, tried to find where I was, but I reached back and I found them and I got business out of it. So it's a continuous process that can have all kinds of different levels to it. And that can be a lot of fun, because you go, I'm really glad that I reached out to them. There was a guy I did business with years and years ago, and I found out that he was still around. So I connected with him and rebuilt the relationship. And then he connected me with someone who was doing a move. So staying in touch with a lot of different people in a lot of different ways is kind of the essence of networking. And it really is a way of life, because it isn't always just for business. It could, like, I know when I moved up to Ventura, I didn't really know anybody. And now after 5 years, I feel like I'm part of the community, just because it was a natural kind of networking thing that I did. And I built and nurtured relationships and feel like I've lived here forever.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I just learned something new here today, Ed. Thank you. I guess you can raise your hand in this. So I'm going to unmute Ed because he has a question. Go ahead, Ed. You're unmuted. Go ahead.
Thanks, Forrest. Hey, Bill, I've got a question about LinkedIn. I've used it for many years, and I've been really careful about who I have in my list of contacts, right? It's only people that I know, that I've worked with, so that if anyone was ever to contact me and say, hey, what do you know about Bill Smith? I see he's in your group, then I feel like I can give a referral to them. But recently I've hired a network marketing person, and she's telling me, Ed, you should just accept anyone that wants, I get invitations every week. Oh, will you join? Can I join your group? And I always say no if I don't know them. And she's telling me, look, Ed, you should just accept everyone and go out and try to get as many people in your LinkedIn as possible, because then when we do your posts, more people will see it. But I feel like it's diluting this, this group that I have. And I'm just curious, Bill, what your feeling is about LinkedIn.
I'm with her. The bigger, the better. It's not, Ed, I don't think it's going to hurt you in any way to accept people. There's always the chance that maybe, you let somebody in. The worst that can happen probably is you accept somebody and they kind of send you too much mail or something like that. But the positive side is exactly what she said. When you post something, there's going to be more people that see it. So my philosophy about LinkedIn, not so much about Facebook because it's a little more personal. But with LinkedIn, I'd say 95% of the people who ask to be connected, I say yes to. And I think that, you could keep it small, but I think there's advantages to making it larger, especially if you're posting stuff. More people are going to see it, and you just don't know where that's going to lead. Could be very, very positive.
All right. So
I have a question.
I guess you're saying I should send a LinkedIn invitation to everyone in the Highrise network. Huh?
Everybody you meet, I'd say, yeah. Especially anybody that's in a meeting. All you need to do, let's say you go to a Highrise meeting and you get business cards or a list of business cards. Especially if you want to connect with somebody, you can say. You don't have to say, I met you at the Highrise meeting, but you can say, I saw you at the Highrise meeting and I'm a fellow member. They're going to accept it. And then you can actually build a virtual relationship, and then eventually it'll be a face-to-face relationship. So the virtual and the face-to-face kind of interact with each other. And especially today, you got to do both of them. And so I'd say build it wider.
Okay, great. Thanks, Bill.
Heather had a question. Go ahead.
Um, so how do you feel about competitors? I get a lot of competitors that look at my LinkedIn page and then some just look and some actually friend me. What are your thoughts about that?
I don't think it should hurt. Um, I don't. You're not giving away any trade secrets. The advantage is it could work into your benefit. Let's say you build a good relationship with a quote unquote competitor, and they get conflicted out of something, and you've built a good relationship with them, and they say, Heather's really a good person. We do the same thing, and we're going after the same business. But I can't do this job. But she is really seems like a very, very competent person. So I don't think there's any real disadvantages if you feel that it is what you're doing is proprietary and it could hurt you by having something you say be seen by a competitor, then maybe you want to be more cautious. But I would say it could have benefit.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, and Jonathan wrote in the chat, we have to be very careful in your security settings to whether or not you allow all of your LinkedIn connections to be shown or not. I do, but if in the case of a competitor, I don't know that I want them to know that I know their client. And that
I think it depends on how aggressive your competitors are. And my guess is in your business, Forrest, that some of your competitors are very, very aggressive, and they're going to try and find out who you do business with and possibly go after it. So I think you have to be cautious. I feel many of my competitors are not going to really take the time to go after my business, and I'd like to build a network as wide as possible because I kind of have the attitude you never know, and it's more likely to be a positive outcome if somebody sees something I post or they see that I'm connected to somebody. They may say, "Oh yeah, you're connected to that person," and if I know them and like them, and they say, "Would you introduce that person?" I'll do it, so that my value has increased because my network has increased. When your network gets really, really large, that's a value. That person. How do you know them? Can you introduce me to them? Mm-hmm. Well, I don't really know them that well. I don't even know how I could, it could be, I don't know how I connected with them. No, frankly, I don't know them very well. So I can't introduce you, or I can. And then again, that increases your value because your network is so wide.
That's good. Pam, you want to talk about our post on LinkedIn and kind of the results that we're seeing?
Well, we see a really good response for videos on LinkedIn, short little videos that you record on your cell phone. If they're live, we get a huge response, and that's the algorithm change, right? We also see a good response to our pictures from meetings. People want to see what's going on in there. We get people asking about membership. So LinkedIn has been nothing but positive for us. And you can't really harvest your connections anymore. They don't allow that. You can't take other people's emails anymore. So I think it's all win-win. I agree with Bill.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Yeah, I thought it was just my good looks as I'm walking down the street. I had a consultant out of San Diego, sales consultant group, and they said, "Don't worry, be crappy. Even if it's bad and the audio's not good, you're doing something, and doing something is better than doing nothing, especially on social media." So as uncomfortable as I am holding that phone up and talking into it, and I feel like I sound like Kermit the Frog and all that. I mean, okay, I'm just gonna go with it. And Pam, we get like 2,700 views.
Oh yeah, thousands of views on the little short videos, and if they're short, people watch them.
Yeah, it's nuts. Well, we have 8 minutes. Bill, do we want to? Let's see if there's any more questions, and then we'll kind of give you the run to the finish here with your summary. Any other questions we have out there? You can unmute and speak up. Okay, Bill, it's your 7-minute road here to fame.
To 7 minute, I can say anything.
Anything.
Okay, so to me, I've seen networking really evolve in the last 25 years, and it continues to evolve. And I think, but some of the basic principles stay the same. Uh, for someone to be a giver is a win-win. Always good to be generous, and it reflects a philosophy. To be a good listener is also always win. You've got to be a good networker to get the most benefit. You've got to have the great balance of being a great listener and a great talker. Meaning you're curious, you listen intently. People feel that when they talk to you that they're fully listened to, and what they say is being heard and remembered. But when you get the opportunity, you're clear, concise, you don't go on and on. If you have a sense of humor, you show your sense of humor. And you're always, when you have the potential to make a referral, to make an introduction, to provide some information, you do it. So you're a giver, you're good at that end of it. When you get a referral, you're immediately thankful and responsive to the referral, and you do a good job. You're competent. You get into networking group and you get business, do a great job, and that's going to be, you continue to do a great job, and hopefully the people that you do a great job for will tell people that you did a wonderful job. Have fun with it. It has an inherent value. My opinion, my advice is, don't see networking as just something as being acquisitive. I'm going to get referrals, I'm going to get business. Yes, you will, but you're also going to get friendships. You may not have. The way I put it is, I did not get into networking so I could have friends. I have plenty of friends, but it happens over time. You build a relationship, you hang out with people, you go to these events, you find some things you have in common with them, and your life is better because you have built the relationship. So even though you may be more all business, and some people are, they're business, if you're open to the social and the personal part of it, it will enrich your life. And it has certainly enriched mine. I mean, when I got into networking, being as my profession being a mover, I was rejected from networking groups initially. They said, well, you're a vendor. You don't have the experience. And of course, after I've written the books on it, then I'm no longer kind of scum of the earth. I'm actually someone that people want to know, what do you think about this? So for me, it's been a great ride, continues to be a great ride. And yes, I get business out of it, but what's far more important to me, and I would hope, and I would give the advice to people listening, is the relation. If you're able and open to building strong personal as well as business relationships, it's going to enrich your life, and it's going to enrich the lives of the people around you. So show up, pay attention, be a giver, and if you get things, be thankful and do a great job. And that, to me, is the essence of networking.
Wow, fantastic. Just so you know that a couple of members have stated that people are already connecting with them on LinkedIn as we're doing the talk. So
Exactly.
people are taking immediate action. I did posted on here the link to your book, Bill, and your books or your webpage. I suggest everybody pick up the book. I know it's going to set you back, what, $9 or $10?
It's really expensive.
Yeah,
Really expensive.
And it's a short read. They're very one-page tips on different things that you can do. Bill, I really appreciate our friendship and the time that you've taken today to talk to us. And please go and get that client I referred you this morning. And because
oh yes,
I see
And
you.
also, anybody who's listening, please connect with me on LinkedIn. And if anybody wants a speaker for any of their groups, I'm always happy to talk about this stuff. I love it. And if it can help people in some way, that's what I'm all about. So thank you very much, Forrest. Appreciate it. Always great talking to you. Thank you, Pam, also. And I will stay in touch.
Okay,
And of
sounds
course,
good.
thank you.
All right, thanks everybody.